What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video, and we've got a big game coming up this week against the Arizona Cardinals, a game in which the New York Giants need to find a way to win. When I open up the schedule, and there's no disrespect to the Arizona Cardinals, they're a young team, much like the Giants. They're traveling 3,000 feet, miles across the country to play the Giants here at home. And it's a game that the New York Giants should win. They're favored. It's going to be one of maybe 4 or 5 games they're favored all year. This is a game we have to get a W, especially being that we got help last week. Yes, we all knew that the Giants were more than likely going to lose against the New England Patriots, but the Giants got lucky and got help from both the Vikings and the Jets, as the Cowboys and, of course, the Eagles dropped their contest, and the Giants only remain 1 game out, 6 games into the season, and they face a winnable opponent here in the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I'm not going to take the Cardinals lightly. The Giants come in, they've dropped their last 2 games. Now, they played good competition. They lost to the Vikings on the road. No, that was at home, rather, and they lost to the New England Patriots on the road. The good news for the Giants is they've had now 10 or 11 days to prepare for this game, being that they played last Thursday. Arizona's coming all the way across from the other side of the country. Now, the Cardinals come in hot. They tied the first game against the Detroit Lions, a game in which they were getting killed. Kyler Murray brought him back, who has looked very impressive recently, and we'll get into him in a second. They then went on to lose against 3 teams who have looked pretty good so far this year. The Ravens, who are 4-2, the Panthers, who are 4-2, and the Seattle Seahawks, who are 5-1. So they lost to some good opponents. Their 2 wins, which came the last 2 weeks, were at Cincinnati, who I put very little stock into, and home against the Atlanta Falcons, who only have 1 win. So, basically, they've pretty much done what you expected. They've lost to the good teams. They've beaten the bad teams. Now, the New York Giants, most would say, are a bad football team. They are 2-4. So, this is a winnable game for both teams. I'm sure the Arizona Cardinals fans are coming into this game saying, we're 2-3-1. The Giants are 2-4. We have a shot to beat this team. And we're going to jump into all the matchups and how the Arizona Cardinals have looked so far this year. Now, of course, the Arizona Cardinals have a new head coach. They have a new quarterback. 2 years ago, they went out, they drafted Josh Rosen. They decided to trade him to pick up Kyler Murray with the first overall pick in this year's draft. And that move was widely criticized by a lot of people, not because it was Kyler Murray, but because they had drafted Josh Rosen just the year before, and they had given up assets to acquire him. And then they just threw him to the wolves, even though they have an awful offensive line. So they brought in Murray because of Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury, of course, runs the air raid style offense, and Murray fits it to a T. And so far, Murray has looked pretty strong. Now, Murray definitely has some deficiencies. He's short. He's listed at 5'10". I think he's probably more like 5'8.5", 5'9". That guy looks small on a football field, but he is a phenomenal athlete, and he's a guy the New York Giants are going to have to keep their eye on throughout this game. And he's been incredibly accurate so far for a rookie, albeit in the system. It definitely favors a high completion percentage, things like that nature, because it's a lot of short passes, which is why the New York Giants will have to make sure that they wrap up their man, because a lot of the damage in this offense comes after the catch. But so far this year, Kyler Murray has a 64% completion percentage, and he's gotten the job done, and we'll get into his stats in a second. First, I'm going to jump into the injury report. Now, this is as of yesterday. I'm sure there'll be a more advanced report coming out today. But David Johnson, who's actually had a pretty good year, especially catching balls out of the backfield in this offense, did not participate up till yesterday. We'll see if we get more news going forward with an ankle injury. Larry Fitzgerald was sidelined to non-injury related, reasons, so he'll definitely be playing in this game. And Christian Kirk, who I believe has missed the last 2 contests, was limited with an ankle. As far as the Giants go, the Giants, Evan Engram and Saquon Barkley, who of course missed last week, and Barkley's been out since week 3, were full participants in practice, and it's looking more encouraging that they should suit up in this must-win contest week 7. Now, Barkley may not get, a full, amount of carries, right? He might not get a full workload. They brought in Buck Allen earlier in the week, so I expect Buck Allen to probably get a decent amount of carries as well, even if Barkley does play. But I expect to see Barkley get a decent workload. And Evan Engram should have a huge game against this defense. And we're going to get into the defense in a second. But it sounds as if both Barkley and Engram will be playing. In terms of other Giants on the injury report, you have Wayne Gallman, Corey Ballantyne, Olsen Pierre, and Sterling Shepard. All did not participate due to concussion injuries. That's right, we got 4 guys out with concussions, and I don't expect any of them to see the field this week. Now, of course, good news for the Giants. Sam Beal will not be able to play this week. He'll be back week 9 from what I've read, but he is starting to get back into the flow of things, and he says that he feels good. So We may see Sam Beal out there at that cornerback position sooner than later, especially if we decide to trade Janoris Jenkins. But in terms of this game, the Arizona Cardinals' strength is clearly on their offense, and their weakness is on their defense. Obviously, the air raid style offense, it's something that Cliff Kingsbury brought. It's an up-tempo offense, a lot of passes. They definitely do not run the ball a lot. Their stats are somewhat misleading because they have a quarterback that does run the football, but this is an offense that is going to throw and throw often. They rank 17th in the league in offense in points, 9th in yards. They have the 5th most passing attempts in football so far this year. They rank 20th in rushing attempts, which includes a lot of attempts from the quarterback. 12th in yards. They average 5 yards per attempt, but again, Kyler Murray inflates that. David Johnson has a 3.9 yards per carry average. This Arizona's Cardinals offensive line is not that strong. That's why Josh Rosen struggled last year, but Murray certainly makes up for some of the deficiencies with his leg. And in terms of the defense as a team, and then we'll get into individual stats, this defense is arguably the worst defense in football. I mean, they are absolutely abysmal, and there is no excuse for Daniel Jones not to go out there and have a pretty good game this Sunday, especially with Barkley hopefully back and Engram, Golden Tate, and everybody else. So I expect Daniel Jones to have a good game, but in terms of their defense, they rank near the bottom of the league in nearly every category. They have given up 16 passing touchdowns so far this year and 0 interceptions. To put that in perspective, Russell Wilson right now is the MVP of the league. He has 14 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So the Cardinals, over their first 6 games, have given up worse numbers than the MVP of the league. That's how bad this defense has been. They have not created an interception and have given up 16 passing touchdowns. They rank 30th in the league in yards against overall, 30th against the pass, 26th against the run. They are surrendering 4.7 yards per carry, which ranks 22nd in the league. So the defense is bad, and the up-tempo offense is not doing them favors because you don't control the clock. Arizona, like the Giants, does struggle in that area. Now, the Giants are starting to get a little bit better, and I expect them to get better with Saquon Barkley back, but the Giants rank 26th in the league in time of possession, where the Cardinals rank 28th. So that would be a big key in this game, controlling the clock, keeping Kyler Murray off the field, much like what the Colts were able to do against the Kansas City Chiefs, not comparing Kyler Murray to Patrick Mahomes, but the point is the strength of this team is on their offense, that up-tempo offense, and they will certainly wear out a defense over the course of the game. So the Giants' biggest weapon here is to keep them off of it against that poor defense, and there's no reason to think that the New York Giants should not be able to run the football down their throat. I mean, with the numbers that they possess, there's really no excuses. Now, in terms of their offensive weaponry, of course, we're going to start with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, so far this year, has definitely been good, and he's coming off of his best game to date in which he threw 3 touchdowns. He seems to be getting better as the weeks wear along. Now, of course, the Atlanta Falcons defense is nothing to write home about. Neither are the Cincinnati Bengals. But for the year, Kyler Murray has 1,664 yards through 6 contests, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions with a 64% completion percentage. As noted earlier, he is a dual threat. 238 yards on the ground with 2 scores. The running back who may not be playing this week, we'll have to wait and see, is David Johnson, who is coming back, from a mediocre year. He's had injury problems, but so far this year, on the ground, he's been rather mediocre. 298 yards with a 3.9 yards per carry average, 2 touchdowns. But where he's done his damage is in the air. He's the team's second leading receiver with 315 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. So the Giants are going to have to do a good job of not just spying Kyler Murray, but covering David Johnson out of the backfield. The linebackers are really going to be put to the test this week. I expect David Mayo and Alec Ogletree to be out there, and they are going to have to man up in coverage. That will not be easy, guarding David Johnson coming out of the backfield on those wheel routes, those screen passes. So got to look out for that. And, of course, Murray with his legs. Larry Fitzgerald is having another really good year. This guy is like fine wine. I mean, really, this guy just seems to get better with age. I don't know when he's going to wear down, but in my opinion, he's one of the top 3 or 4 wide receivers in the history of the sport, and this year is no different. He's got 427 yards and 2 touchdowns on 35 receptions on 52 targets. He's been by far the most targeted receiver. Some of that has to do with Christian Kirk being out the last 2 weeks, but nevertheless, Larry Fitzgerald is a guy the New York Giants are definitely going to have to keep a close eye on. One other thing I wanted to touch on was the lifetime record between these two teams. Now, of course, the Cardinals used to play in the same division as the New York Giants if you go back to the early 90s. But since then, of course, they've been in the West. And historically, that's why they played a lot of games. The Giants hold an advantage of 80, 44, and 2. The Cardinals, however, have won the last 2 times these two teams have met, including a game in which they shut the New York Giants out 23-0 in 2017. That was the year, of course, the Giants went 3-13. But yeah, so there's the history. Now, breaking down what the New York Giants have to do to win this football game. Gotta force Kyler Murray outside of the pocket. You have to make him uncomfortable. I think Dexter Lawrence will play a big key in that. I don't think the Cardinals will be very successful running between the tackles. Dalvin Tomlinson has done a great job over the last couple of weeks. We have a strong middle right there. Of course, with the aforementioned Dexter Lawrence. So I think the Giants will clog up the middle. I think it'll make it hard for the Cardinals to run between the tackles. I expect the Cardinals to throw a lot of wheel routes and screen passes to David Johnson. Try to hit Larry Fitzgerald in the slot or up the seam or whatever. And look out for Kyler Murray with the legs. He's going to try to extend plays and hit plays over the top. And they're definitely going to have to spy Kyler Murray. And as I mentioned earlier, the biggest key to me on defense this week is proper tackling. Got to wrap up your guys, especially against a team like this, and get after the quarterback. This team is not allergic to surrendering sacks. Murray was sacked 8 times, I think, in a game earlier this year. So the Giants, who have 16 sacks over their last 5 contests, definitely should be turning it up, trying to force Kyler Murray to make some throws he doesn't want to make, especially a rookie quarterback. You'll want to make him frantic. Now, of course, the Giants, which another major storyline in this game, have Daniel Jones, so it'll be the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft this year going up against each other, which you don't see all the time, that they get to play each other in their rookie year. But Daniel Jones, of course, coming off a disappointing performance, a game that we all thought he would struggle without his weapons, going against Bill Belichick and that lethal New England defense, is getting a great opportunity here with his weapons back, going against a mediocre defense to definitely bounce back and hopefully give the New York Giants a great effort this week and the Giants offense. And I think he will. And I think the Giants will go out there and put up some points. In terms of the keys for offense, don't turn the football over. Run the ball as much as you can because this team ain't stopping the run. Control the clock. Keep Kyler Murray off the field. Keep that defense fresh so they can make plays late in the game and get after the quarterback. I honestly don't think the New York Giants are going to struggle too much against this defense. They're just not a good defense. So with Barkley back, I expect to hit Evan Engram with a lot of passes up the seam. Now Patrick Peterson is back for the Cardinals, one of the best cornerbacks in football. I would think he'd be guarding Golden Tate, especially with Sterling Shepard out. But we'll have to wait and see what the Cardinals decide to do. If he does, I think Darius Slayton may hit on a big play as well. So the New York Giants strategy in this game, got to control that clock, keep that offense off the field. And I don't think they'll have trouble doing that, which is why I'm going to pick the New York Giants at home to take down the Arizona Cardinals here in Week 7 and get to 3-4 and stay within 1 game of the division because, of course, the Cowboys and Eagles will be playing each other this week. So I think the Giants do get to 3-4. I think they win this game. I'm going to go with a final score of 31-21. I think the defense comes to play. I think the Giants win rather comfortably. And we get some positive vibes going in New York. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you got in this game? Who do you think is going to win and why? As always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.